Hello and welcome to the Change Gang podcast with me, your host, Laura Ordile. I'm here to help you hold on to your sanity and your soul as you move through big change. I'm here to guide you from frustration to flow in your life, bridging the practical and the woo, just for you. Let's go. All right. Welcome to the Week Change Gang. Glad you're here. I have a fun guest with me today. Amy Cinnamon is here, and she is an amazing person that I got to meet through the experiences that you guys know are part of my journey with hypnosis and confidence and all the lovely things that we all journey through and have fun with. And so, Amy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, my name's Amy Cinnamon, and I'm the owner of U2U Coaching and Hypnosis. And I'm a hypnotherapist. And I became a hypnotherapist because I wanted to help people to become more confident in themselves so that they can let go of anxiety, let go of those unwanted fears. And what's interesting is that those traditional methods, like medication, like the bottle of wine on a Friday night, they at best have a very low success rate, right? When of all the things, hypnosis has an extremely high success rate, which is proven in clinical trials all around the world. And it's something that helped me in my own journey. So that's the reason why I'm a hypnotist. And I love doing it.
Me too. I love it too. It's so fun to be able to dive in and help people in ways that do work, and they are proven. And I think a lot of people don't realize the research that's gone in behind this. I mean, I think they think back to the days, or even now, to the stage hypnotists that watch my watch or click like a chicken or something like that. And it's really not that.
Yeah, I've had people say to me when I've told them I'm a hypnotist, they're like, oh, I'm scared of them. And I'm like, really? You've been scared by a hypnotist before? They're like, well, no, it's just like when you see them in the films and they're always the evil hypnotist. And I was like, oh, right, well, I'm not that, so you're all right.
Right, we have the good hats on. We're the good hypnotists. So, I think there's a lot of myths that people think, and one of them I know for sure that's out there, that a lot of people that I talk to, they're afraid of having someone else control them during hypnosis. Get that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one of the biggest myths, is people think that they are being taken control over, when actually it's the complete opposite. It's that the person is in control the entire time. It's simply a case of heightened focus and absorbed attention, which is a natural state that we find ourselves in all of the time. So we're not creating anything new. We're literally just utilizing something that's already there within the person. And in fact, I like to actually call myself somebody that dehypnotizes people. I often find whenever I've finished a program with a client, we talk about, the changes that they've made and how they're feeling about things now. And one of the things I'll say is, so do you feel like you've kind of been dehypnotized out of that trance that you were in before, where you just did that behavior on repeat and you had no control over it? Now you have that control. They're like, oh yeah, I was just totally hypnotized, wasn't I, by that thing, that particular behavior they were doing, or perhaps even a person. So we often have that fear of somebody taking control of us, which creates massive anxiety for when people want to actually go for some help. But when you think about it, a lot of the psychology and the neuroscience that is proven time and time again, we often find these methods that are brought into sort of real world strategies now are actually what is already in hypnosis. That's what I'm finding. A lot of the stuff that is kind of up and coming modern ways of, especially in the coaching world, a lot of the techniques have just derived from hypnosis in the first place. If that makes sense.
It's been around for a long time. And it's interesting when you do talk to people about what are you doing or how are you doing this? And then you see that it does relate back to, Yeah, that's one of the methods that I put in play or that I work with or that I do. And people don't realize that. And I love how you just put that about being dehypnotized out of the trance that you were in before, that you were just following the same way going over and over and again. And I describe it a lot as, you're on a bus and your subconscious is driving and you're going over the same route time and time and time again. And until you do something to change that, it's just going to keep going that way.
Yeah. And I think the way I describe it sometimes is that it's like we're just running a program on our computers. And if we keep allowing the program to run without giving it any direction, it will just keep running. And to me, that is somebody in a trance. They're in a hypnotic state with that just continuation of a process that they don't actually, I say they don't want it anymore, but it's more reasonable to say that it's not serving a purpose for them anymore.
True.
So we just need to get rid of that old program and reprogram something else, or just update what was already there into a new modern way of doing things.
Yeah, because sometimes the things that we've done, they did serve us for a period of time. It was something that we needed to do or process or live in. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's just that we change and we need to go a new direction. And the interesting thing is oftentimes you can get going in that other direction. Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot more effort and a lot more time unless you stop and go in and have that conversation or have that negotiation with the subconscious and say, here's what we want to do, and get the subconscious on board and moving in a direction. It's like, boom, so much quicker. Don't you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of the time people just rely on sheer willpower to try and change something about themselves, especially, when it comes to health and fitness. People think, right, I need to make these changes. I know I have to, otherwise there's going to be major consequences if I don't. So I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to start running twice a week. I'm going to stop eating chocolate cake. And then, 2 or 3 days in, it falls by the wayside. And there they are, just back on those same eating habits, and they're not doing the exercise that they promise themselves. And it's often because willpower is just that conscious thought of, right, I want this to happen. But that conscious mind actually is relying on, how much energy we have throughout the day. It also, it depletes continuously. The moment we wake up, the moment we have to run about after the kids, or we have to deal with our boss at work, or we've got those hunger pains because we're starving because we haven't eaten properly, and our willpower, it just depletes and depletes as the day goes on. But also behind that are those programs that are running, those drivers, as you said, the bus driver is still going in that same direction. And we've got this tiny proportion of our mind trying to control the entire system. It's got absolutely no chance. And this is why people end up finding themselves just going round and round in circles, because they're only working with a very small part of their mind. When, like you said, through hypnosis, well, there's also other methods, but with hypnosis, it does allow us access to that main part of the mind, the unconscious, which is typically 90% of the mind, right? That's driving everything else. If we can just give the bus driver some new directions, a new map to follow in the direction that we actually want him to go in, it makes the process so much easier.
Ooh, true. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Amy, one of the things you do that I love is, and I know this was part of the journey that you kind of took, but you actually do a lot of education around confidence and around changing the way that you go in the world and how to bring that about. What drove you to bring that part, that educational part in?
I think, my own journey started off with zero confidence. And when I was a teenager, I was just terrible for kind of wanting to do things and having this sort of keenness to throw myself into something, but I would never do it. So I'd always get to the point where the action needed to be taken. I would just kind of stop, nothing would happen. I found that sort of like speaking in front of people, I felt like humiliating. I don't know what happened when I was a teenager, but at some point I just decided then that, right, that's it. I'm just not a confident person. And then that became the dialogue that I had with myself for quite a long time. And when I actually became a grown-up and started working in education, I worked in secondary schools. My role was a head of year, so it was a very pastoral role, which meant that the entire year group, part of my role was to sort of manage their behaviour, their welfare, like everything. So it was just being like a full-time mum within a school. And one of the things that that role entailed was actually talking to the whole year group and doing assemblies. And the very first time that my boss said to me, Amy, you're going to have to start doing assemblies, I almost quit my job because of that. Like she brought me into the office and was like, Amy, you're going to have to start doing assemblies. And I was just like, I couldn't even answer her when she said it. My throat seized up and I just felt all hot and sweaty and just like full on panic took over me. I could have actually walked out of the room. And I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Like totally faked it and was just like, yeah, fine. But afterwards, when I walked out, I thought, if I don't do something about this now, like I'm never going to be able to do those things that I want. I'm never going to be able to improve myself as a person. But not only that, behind the scenes was, I had 2 children, my daughter and my son. And I was always pushing them, to get into like dancing and martial arts and things like that. And just seeing them sort of embracing stuff without any fears made me realize so much more that I had to do the same to be a good role model to them. And it was from there I actually discovered neuro-linguistic programming. So over the years, I became a master at neuro-linguistic programming as well as hypnosis. And it was going on that journey that made me realize how easy it actually is and how difficult the situation I was in and how much that would have just continued on repeat had I not discovered these skills, had I not discovered these simple strategies that just work, because we're not taught these things in school, we're not taught these things in education. So I kind of made it my mission to not only help people to get to where they want to be in terms of their own, self-esteem, their own confidence levels, but actually to give them the education behind it. So I often find that when, you just give people the skill, right, do this is going to happen for you, or you actually take them through the entire technique and they come out feeling great and they feel like they can, they've then accomplished the task that they're going to do. So for example, I had a lady who had just been given a promotion, and one of the part of her promotion actually meant that she would have to train the staff. She described herself as a very quiet, shy individual who just, did her job because she wanted to make sure that the kids were getting the right services that they needed. But then all of a sudden, this new role was thrusted upon her and she felt like she was going to crumble. And, I'd been there myself, so I knew exactly where she was coming from. And once I'd showed her the skill, once I'd guided her through the process, she was able to deliver her talk, she was able to deliver her whole training package and actually feel amazing. But then she came back to me because what I hadn't done was educated her on the why it worked, educated her on what was actually happening within the process of the mind and how she can then transfer those skills that I taught her into any area of her life. And I think that's what's important for me, is not just giving somebody what they want and getting them to the place they need to be, but also it's kind of imperative for me now to give people the skills so that even after we finish working together, that they can continue on the process on their own, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And actually, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday, because some people are of the mind that, well, if you do that, if you do give them the behind the scenes or the information, then they're not going to come back to you and, you've lost a client and you're not going to be able to continue work. And I don't see it that way at all. I see it as giving them the skills to function in a way that that's what they came to me for, is to help them. Yeah. And if I can help them move through the next thing and the next thing, that's great. And oftentimes what I see happen, and I'm going to bet that you see this happen too, is that people will come back anyway because they're in a new level, a new situation. They have something that they just need a little bit of help with. And that's where, they know the process. They know that it helped them the last time. And so they come and say, you did give me these skills, but I feel like I need some extra help. And so then they show up because you did all that extra stuff for them. Do you see that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I've been able to guide someone through a process and educate them and give them the skills so they can do it themselves, what I find happens is that they actually go out into the world and share the skills with other people. And so then those people then want to actually come and learn it for themselves. They want to actually go through the entire process. So what I find is that those people who go through my programs actually, they become part of my network. They start referring other people to me because they are able to explain to somebody what they've got out of the situation. It's not just a case of, oh, yeah, we did some hypnosis, or I don't know what she did, but I feel great. I don't know what she did, but this happened for me. Instead of that, it's, yeah, she actually taught me how to control my emotions. She's taught me how to reduce anxiety. She's taught me how to be able to future pace myself into situations, and actually give them the skills and the knowledge and the so that they can actually articulate it to somebody else, because then they're selling the service for you as well. That's the way I see it. And what's great about that is, when somebody has gone through the process and they've got over that problem, we always, life's full of problems. So once you've got rid of one problem, another one comes along, no matter where you are in your journey of, whether it's relationships, finance, business, or whatever, there's always another problem that needs solving. So people do come back. And I think if you give people a full set of skills and give them more than what they were anticipating, then, then you've got somebody who knows where to go. So they're not then having to shop around either every time they come up with a new situation. It's not a case of, oh, well, Amy only deals with anxiety, but actually I don't feel anxious about this. I've got this behavioral thing that I want to stop. They get to understand that actually these techniques are very versatile and can actually be put into any area of life. Does that make sense?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's interesting because, there are people who specialize just like you and in confidence or in anxiety, but that doesn't mean that someone can't come to you for weight loss or for smoking or for anything else, that biting their nails. You're still going to have some of the tools in your toolbox that are going to help them with that, because it is still working with the subconscious, whether you're doing NLP or hypnosis. I know you have some other things that you do as well. Any of those, it's the process of going in and, depending on the person, of course, finding the right way to have that conversation with the subconscious so that the change can come quickly and easily in a way that allows them to move forward. And I think that's something that a mentor we have in common actually says that, he has people that come back to him regularly, and it's not because it's not working. It's because, as the client says, I know you've taught me these things and they're great. However, I know that if I come to you, it's going to be a quicker process. And that's a great thing too.
Yeah. Well, when somebody's give you a great piece of advice or they've helped you out before, you always go back to that person, right? You don't sit there scratching your head thinking, oh, I wonder where I'm going to be able to get some help from for this. It's like a no-brainer. You'll go to where you've been successful before.
Right. And I think any ethical person too, that's in our position, if there really is something that it's like, I don't know about that, but I probably know someone who does, let me find the best person for you.
Yeah. I'd refer people on. I recently had somebody get in touch with me who was a cancer patient, and he was actually wanting some help like with healing and things like that. And, he understood that, it wasn't, there was no sort of like help in terms of like targeting the cancer, if you like. It's certainly not something I do, but he just wanted some like relaxation sessions, but he wanted it focusing on the problems that the cancer was causing him. And I had to be honest, because I don't have a medical background. My sort of understanding of the physical body, the biology, it's very limited. So I referred him on to another guy who is, absolutely ace at that kind of stuff. And me too, I get clients that are referred to me from other hypnotists who don't particularly specialize in anxiety, fears, confidence. Like, their focus is more on stop smoking or like nail biting, sleep issues, things like that. So I guess we all find our little niches, don't we? And I think for me, it kind of just developed itself. I think you don't really always know what a client is going to bring to the session anyway. So I've recently started with a lady who wanted to work with me for around her confidence in terms of eating the right foods, because she's on a special diet plan because of her diabetes. So even though we have, clients with complex needs, if you like, we can still work with them, in terms of helping them to manage a particular aspect of that. And if it's with confidence on changing and having that self-belief that, you can do this and putting those strategies in place, then yeah, I'm all over that one.
Right. And don't you find that when you are working with people who have this issue and this issue and this one, that when you start the process and you start working with them on one part of it, some of the other parts kind of naturally come into flow and naturally helps clear some of those up and correct them along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a young girl who I'd been working with her about her fear of dogs. So it was online sessions that I was doing with her, and she had a fear of dogs. So even like just walking to school was an issue for her. She was in year 11. So even walking to school was an issue for her. And she'd put up with it since she was around 6 years old. So it'd been a long, long time she'd been dealing with it for. Anyway, we kind of cleared that up in one session, which was a bit of a, oh my God, is this even real? Because I don't even feel scared of dogs anymore. And we needed to do more sessions for that belief to actually sink in, so it could actually become part of a reality. I think it's important to do that. I think when somebody's had such a quick sort of dramatic change, if it's like, right, that's it then, you're done, sorted. I think in my experience, that's when I found actually that the problem can very easily come back, because if there's another moment of a situation with a dog or, or a bird or a wasp or whatever it is, if you haven't taught them the skills to deal with it and at this age that you are now, at this wisdom as you have as a person now, if you haven't given them the skills to deal with those, perceived threats, then they can very quickly go back to the same response that worked before for them. Anyway, I kind of went off track there a little bit, but the point of me telling you that story was it turned out that there was also a lot of bullying going on at school. And because of the teaching part, the education part, which is why my company is called U2U Coaching. It's U2U as in being unique to you, was originally my first name for it, but then I just shortened it down to U2U. And the reason why I kept it as coaching is because, yes, even though there's hypnosis involved, there's also NLP, there's also Intergral Eye Movement Therapy, there's also metaphors of movement, there's lots of other modalities involved. So you can can't call it one thing, although to me, all of it is technically hypnosis anyway. But it's that coaching element that is just so important, because all of the skills that I taught her about, if she sees a dog on the other side of the road, how she trained herself to respond in those moments, actually, she was putting them in place for the bullies as well. And it wasn't until after we'd finished that she got in touch with me and said, basically thanking me for the skills that I taught her, and that actually she hadn't shared this with me, but she was being severely bullied in school. That's why her attendance was so bad and things like that. But since she'd learnt the skills, just how it's all just stopped. Just from walking around with the head up and her shoulders back, just from having those visualizations of how she wants things to go. And, like future pacing. I taught her how to do a simple future pacing technique. So, for dogs, where she was actually doing it for bullies. So very metaphorical kind of thing that went on, where I was working on the dogs, but she was working on the bullies, which I didn't actually know at the time. But she got the results that she wanted and more. So that's always a bonus when you find out that it's spread into other areas, whether accidentally or like what she did, very much so on purpose, because she was just embarrassed. She didn't want to worry her parents about it. I think she'd come forward about it before in the past, but nothing had come of it. So she was just sort of very much struggling in that place of being victimized. But once she had the skills, it just really allowed her to resolve it herself. So yeah.
That's great. So we've talked about future pacing a little bit a couple times. And would you be able to explain for people or kind of tell them, share with them how you teach people to future pace a little bit?
Yes. One of the things I always ask people is, well, so say if somebody, typically people come to me because they want to improve their confidence. No matter what it is, they're often starting off because they want to get rid of anxiety. They want to feel good when they're walking down the aisle when they get married, or they want to feel confident when they go for the job interview. And that's what they want. But actually, they often come in with, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to feel anxious anymore. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'll often ask them the question of, are you focusing too much on your present, that you're not giving your future self a chance? And then I'll just sit and wait and kind of give them a chance to think about that, because we often tend to worry about the now, how we're feeling right now, which actually stops us from doing things. It was certainly one of the things that I used to do. Come to that sort of crunch night, I would cancel. I'd be like, no, I'm not going. And it would, because I would worry about the now, how I'm going to stutter, my words aren't going to come out, and I don't want to put myself through this uncomfortable process. What I wasn't thinking about was what's going to happen after I've gone through that process. That relief, that achievement, even bigger than that is, what are those people going to get out of that as well? The people who are listening, or the company that you are going to work for, what are they going to get out of you actually putting yourself in that position that you don't want to be in? So always bringing somebody out of the now and making it into a much bigger picture is always a starting point. But then to be more specific about the future pacing, because there's lots of different ways to do it, but one of the easiest ways for clients is, especially when they don't have any prior knowledge to this, is to actually focus on what it is that you do want. That is, the first fundamental step, because we are just so ingrained in this focus of what we don't want to happen. The conversation always goes on to what we don't want to happen. Exactly. Yeah, and I think even whether with friends or family, the minute we start talking about any conversation, it's always on the negative. And it's been like that for generations, as far as I'm aware. We've never had this, especially in our culture in the UK, we've never had this sort of upbeat and positive outlook on life. It's always that, oh, well, I hope it doesn't bloody rain tomorrow because I've got to go and do this. And everything's such a chore all the time. But when you teach somebody about changing the language, that is the starting point for any kind of future pacing, because there's no point in them thinking about their future and imagine all the things that could go wrong, which is basically the typical process of anxiety. People think about what's going to come, and instead of thinking what they want to happen, they'll think about all the things that they don't want to happen. Like, I haven't been out of the house for 2 years, and I'm not going to go out the house because I know that people are going to laugh at me. I know that somebody's going to say something and upset me, or it might be raining, or my shoes probably don't fit me anymore. Like, all of these things just, accumulate and start quite a very deep spiral that can very quickly get out of control. Because we can have a list as long as our arm of all the things that we don't want, and it can go on and on and on. Where actually, when we think about what we do want, it's often only 3-4 things, if that. So it's a very small amount of things to focus on, which takes less brain power. So all it is about working that muscle of thinking and focusing only on what you do want, even if it's 2 or 3 things. So then you just repeat those 2 or 3 things, rather than thinking of, well, I've thought about what I want, now what? And then letting your mind just take you off elsewhere. Just keep repeating. And there's, I don't know where it's from now. It might be psychosomatics, where it's image cycling. Anyway, I won't go into that because we're on about future person, but basically it's kind of deciding on what you want, having an image of that. Now, how far in the future you go really depends on what the thing is. So if you've got a job interview coming up, for example, in 2 weeks' time, then what do you want to happen? You want to do the interview confidently, you want to do it well, you want to speak clearly, you want to speak calmly. And then what? Well, you want to get the job, right? So you have the focus on actually getting the job. You have the focus on, you've already done your interview, that stuff's already happened. So the focus is even beyond the action that you take. Because when you train your brain, when you give your brain the information of the stuff that you actually want, what happens is that the brain will already assume that it's happened. So it's no longer new, it's no longer scary. So when we do things for the first time, our first initial reaction is, because it's new, it's scary to the brain. The brain's, priorities to keep us safe. So anything out of our comfort zone, anything that we've never done before, we're initially going to have, a little bit of anxiety about it. Obviously, depending on what it is, will depend on the level of anxiety. Depending on how far you're going out your comfort zone will depend on the level of anxiety. And one of the things that I will demonstrate to people is how the power of our own language to ourselves. So have you ever done the little technique of light and heavy arms?
Yes.
Yes. So that technique is a great demonstration to help people understand not only the power of imagination, but also the power of words. You have, so for your listeners' sake, you have somebody hold their arms out, and you have one hand facing up, and that hand facing up, you have them imagine that there's a heavy book. So even if you're listening now, you can just hold even just one hand out, doesn't matter which one, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and just imagine that you have a large, heavy book that has been placed on that hand. And you start to imagine the colour of that book, perhaps even the story inside. Perhaps you can even imagine like the pages turning, or even you might go back to a memory of when you were read a book as a child. And all the while you can just feel the weight of that book in your arm. Now, after a couple of minutes of that, you'll find, well, not even a couple of minutes, after a couple of seconds, you'll find that you can really feel a book in your hand. You can feel the weight, and your arm will begin to lower. And from that, we can demonstrate how powerful the imagination is, and how the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. So if you imagine being in a scary situation, and whether it's walking down a dark alley and somebody's chasing you, and you could get those butterflies in your stomach very quickly just from imagining that process. Or likewise, you can remember a time when you had, when you told a joke and everybody laughed and you had a scream with your mates, or when somebody fell over on the backside, and you can laugh about it now. It's the same process that is happening. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So if you are somebody who is thinking about their future, and that future is scary, you're going to feel those scary feelings now, which will actually stop you in your tracks. It's not going to allow you to move forward. Where if you imagine the future being how you want it, and it's positive, and it's bright, and it's colourful, and it's juicy, all the things that you want it to have already achieved, how do you think you're going to feel about it now? You're going to feel pretty awesome, right? You're going to feel pretty good about it. And it's that process that is key to allowing your mind to see this new thing as no longer new, because you've already experienced it. Now, it can take a while for somebody to get their head around that, but throughout hypnosis, there's lots of ways to, keep sort of reaffirming that, I feel like, in the terms of giving more examples, more evidence of how and why this works. But future pacing is something that can, be tied into what they call mental rehearsal.
Right.
And, and there's lots of research that has been done on mental rehearsal. It's something that
amazing.
That athletes use, politicians use, actors use, but again, it's not something that we are taught in a general standard education. But those people who use it are those people who are top of their game. are those people who actually achieve more of what they want. So, and it's just a skill, it's just a strategy. It doesn't something that you naturally have to be good at, because this stuff can be taught. And that's why I love it so much, because it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, all of this stuff can be learned at any stage of life. Something that you take on and do at your own pace in your own way. And you often find that people do have their own individualized twist on things, because this isn't about just like positive thinking, not at all. This is like more than that. This is something that is actually proven in science time and time again, and was proven, like, I don't know, back in the 60s or something like that, with neuroscience, especially the mental rehearsal side of the improvements that can be made, whether that's an actual physical skill, you know, whether it's playing the piano, golf, rugby, or whatever, or whether it's a public speaking skill, or whether it's doing job interviews skill, or whether it's a relationship skill. Because, like I said, these things are all skills that we learn. How we act, how we respond, how we decide to be in situations are just skills that we develop over time. And if we can give ourselves some simple strategies to use, then, hey, well, you're ahead of most people who don't use this stuff.
Right. And one of the things is that you almost already know some of it. You just know it in another form, because if you're going into that anxiety, if you're going into the difficulty and the fear and all of that, you're already using the skill that you can turn around and future pace into that good thing with, because you're imagining a difficult thing happening. Even if you're basing it on something that's happened previously, it hasn't happened yet. And if it hasn't happened yet, then it's not true. And so you're taking yourself down a journey that is basically your own creation. And so why not shift it into something where you're creating something better?
Yeah. We're just reimagining something from the past, aren't we? We're just either reimagining something from the past, we're putting our own spin on it. It's, you know, every piece of information that we have is being deleted or distorted or generalized based on our own perceptions, our beliefs, our own values. So whatever we have already stored is already distorted in some way. Whatever we imagine, we're also imagining it through our own filters as well. So it's all made up, right? It's all just stuff that we made up. So why not make something up that is much more beneficial, that is going to empower you, that is going to make you feel good, that is going to make the people around you feel good? Because, you know, we're contagious, aren't we? We're contagious human beings. Whatever emotion we are feeling, whatever we are expressing, the people around us are going to mirror that. So the more we can be sort of somebody who leads the room or can lead the emotion in any situation, then we're going to benefit back, because when we see someone mirroring those empowering feelings, that confidence, then we end up bouncing off each other, and everybody's feeling good about themselves. Nobody's kind of there all doom and gloom. And maybe the one person who is like in the corner having a grumble about there's no milk left for the coffee machine or whatever. And yeah, I think when you're in those situations, you can take in so much more from other people's experiences about how they express their confidence, how they express their own ways of feeling empowered, because, you know, how we can model from other people. If you think about somebody who is confident, somebody who has high self-esteem, somebody who has a good self-image, you look at them from the outside and how are they holding their body? And even just that of modeling somebody's posture, modeling somebody's facial expressions, can actually help you yourself to feel really good. And that's, I know I've kind of gone off on a tangent there, but that's also another strategy that I teach people about their own physiology.
I think we could sit and chat for hours, and
I know, yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll have to come back and chat some more. But for now, thank you for explaining that, because it is important for people to know that they're already future pacing themselves. So why not do it in a way that is in the form that they want their future? And that's an easy process, because they're already doing it. So just shift the focus. I'm going to go ahead and why don't you run a couple of places that people can get in touch with you. And of course, I'll include it in the show notes, so we'll have all that information there for you. But tell them where they can find you, Amy.
Yeah, sure. So the easiest place to find me is on my website, which is www.u2ucoaching.com. Now it's U as in the letter U and the number 2, the letter U. It's u2ucoaching.com. I'm also on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. And again, it's just Amy Cinnamon, U2U Coaching. Or you can just Google my name and all my pages come up. So
There you go.
and it's Amy Cinnamon, right? But cinnamon is with a C. It's like the spice. Cinnamon with a D on the end.
Cinnamon. That's how I remembered you, was this, because cinnamon with a D. It's cinnamon with a D.
Yeah, people can never spell it. They always spell it with an S, but it's with a C.
Thanks so much, Amy. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
For all of my wonderful people out there, I hope to meet you right here again, same time next week. Ciao. I hope today's episode was interesting to you in some way and fun. If so, hey, find someone to share it with. Maybe they need to hear it too, or maybe they'll just enjoy it. If you'd like, go ahead and grab my tips on supercharging your success. It includes a free short meditation to do just that. You can find that at bit.ly/supercharge your success. Until next time, happy day.